It's a routine day as Lee goes to the grocery to buy some supplies. Everything is as usual, until suddenly, out of nowhere, portals erupt and monsters flood out. The goblins quickly start slaughtering the supermarket patrons, sparing no one. Fortunately, Lee obtains a machete and defends himself. Thanks to his skill as a mercenary, he effortlessly takes down a few goblins. He gathers the frightened survivors, arms them with whatever he can find, and leads them ahead to fight off the goblins who keep approaching. At first everything goes fine, but gradually people start to fatigue, and the stream of goblins doesn't stop. Soon the military arrives, and with their weaponry, Lee helps finish off the last creatures. At that moment, a system window appears in front of him, with a notification that the game is restarting. While Lee struggles to understand what it means, the portal lights again, and a giant orc steps out. Lee and the soldiers open fire, but the bullets are worthless. The orc is immune to guns. Then one of the survivors, who just moments ago was hiding in dread, leaps forward and knocks down the orc with a single swing of his axe, stating the weak area is the legs. Lee can't grasp what's occurring. How could this guy, who is shivering at the sight of a single goblin, suddenly become so strong and confident? Soon all the other survivors show the same shift, becoming seasoned monster slayers. But weirdly, the alterations affect everyone except our hero. Suddenly he receives a system notification that explains everything. Due to a system breakdown, his regression has failed. Everyone else has regressed from the future. They know everything about the beasts and have years of battle experience. At that moment, Lee realizes he's absolutely screwed. But before he can even analyze it, another notification pops. The system has given him a unique special skill as recompense. It is Butterfly Effect Level 1, granted because he has not regressed. Every action he does that influences the future will now give him bonus points. Lee stares at the words and understands. The butterfly effect means that the slightest action can unleash a storm on the opposite side of the earth. More orcs step out of the gap, and the gamers rush forward to fight. Lee fires while assessing the battle. With his new player status, he can now see each monster's name and level above its head. His bullets simply leave minor scorch marks, proving worthless against the orc's tough skin. Close combat weaponry function better, since the regressors already know their weak points. Realizing this, he returns the rifle and picks up an axe. The algorithm rewards him with an additional point, illustrating that his new decisions impact the future. When an orc charges, he throws the axe at its knee and finishes it off with a clean strike. Kim watches and explains that in the past, he had used a chainsaw instead of an axe. Lee smiles, recognizing that every different choice generates a new future. Kim then tells him he once killed 3 orcs using thinner. Lee recalls it as a flammable chemical and decides to try it. The butterfly effect happens again, awarding him extra points. He pours thinner on the orcs, sets them ablaze, and watches flames destroy them. The system awards multiple bonus points, and confidence increases within him. A message appears announcing his daring rookie achievement and granting a new talent called armor. A green aura forms around his body, stunning everyone nearby. Kim curses in despair, while another player complains that Lee constantly acquires this power. Lee thinks this must be the same skill he had earlier, since the butterfly effect did not activate. As the rift begins to rumble again, everyone looks toward it, bracing for what happens next. Lee stands before the fissure as a system window displays, dubbing it the Goblin and Orc Dungeon with a D- difficulty. He studies the screen and concludes this game looks designed to wipe off civilization. Each dungeon includes a predetermined amount of monsters that eventually stream out through gates, and closing a gate is the only way to stop them. He turns to the players and begs them to clear the dungeon swiftly. He remembers that difficulty impacts prizes and skill grades, but his purpose is not loot. He wants to test his new armor talent and the stats earned by the butterfly effect. With 15 bonus points in hand, he puts them all into strength, improving it from 1 to 16. Confident in his experience with goblins and orcs, he enters the gate. The players follow, with Kim close following, wondering if Lee had conquered this region in his prior life. Inside, a goblin emerges from the shadows and bites Lee's arm. Armor activates quickly, deflecting the attack. He crushes the goblin's head with one hand and receives another bonus point. The others gaze in disbelief as his strength develops significantly within few hours. A female player calls it impossible, and Kim mutters that armor must be why Lee was once Korea's strongest player. When Lee dismisses his remarks, Envy overtakes Kim. He grabs a chainsaw and attacks, but the blade cannot breach the brilliant armor. Lee smiles maliciously, smashes the chainsaw, and holds Kim's neck. As Kim gasps in dread, Lee recalls the truth of the battlefield. Greed inevitably ends in destruction. He discovers these regressors. Imagine they could steal what he once possessed. Fixing his gaze on the remainder, he cautions them to stay back. Then he twists Kim's neck and lets the body fall. A heavy stillness follows. Lee tells himself that the world's old laws no longer matter. The game has begun, and mercy only leads to weakness. He addresses the terrified players and advises them to leave if they value their lives. Lee looks down at Kim's corpse and understands how horrible this game truly is. An inventory window floats above the body, offering his stuff to others. He mutters about its convenience and grabs the Goblin Champion's necklace, observing that it now has a new owner. The algorithm rewards him with bonus points for influencing the future. The necklace dramatically improves his strength and agility, giving him the same power as leveling up twice. It may lose value eventually, but for now it is useful. When a player mocks its appearance, Lee ignores the remark and picks up the shattered chainsaw to cut down remaining goblins. Even if the boost is little, every ounce of power counts. A notification arrives, announcing that all creatures are killed and the dungeon will collapse in 3 minutes. He recalls that a gate closes only when all creatures inside are slain. Those that fail to flee vanish with it, which explains the short escape timer. By the gate, he recognizes the youngster who had earlier cried at his father. Lee asks if he wishes to die here. The youngster insists on sticking with him. Lee instructs him to leave, but the youngster continues to beg. Frustrated, Lee scolds him again and awards his 9 remaining bonus points to strength, boosting it to 25, 28 with the necklace. The boy then reveals that they regressed 10 years into the past. He claims his life will not change, even after those 10 years. Thus he aspires to be a hero just once. He asks to accompany Lee, calling himself Kim Min-soo. His remarks and knowledge of future events attract Lee's interest. Min-soo reveals that he faced monsters and dragons for 10 years, and now aspires to serve the hero of Korea. Lee finds him engaging and accepts his loyalty. As they leave the gate, Lee wonders if becoming a sidekick is Min-soo's only objective. Min-soo says that he wants to be second in command, calling Lee number 1. Lee invites him to prove it by listing 10 future players, comrades or rivals alike, warning that treason means death. Min-soo accepts, and they exchange contact data before separating. 3 days later, the globe continues to adjust to the regression. Many players stay silent, frightened of being considered insane, or hoping for a fresh life. But with everyone regressing, no one can stand out as the solitary primary figure. Media and online platforms fill with stories about the new world. Lee watches the news from his apartment. The presenter, Jung Moon-young, announces that the world has transformed into a game and introduces Lee Dong-guk, director of the Asia-Pacific division of the World Player Association. Jung wonders about the confusion around the regression. Dong-guk explains that it promotes humanity, as stronger players can protect others and restore order faster. Only those offering future information pose an issue. Jung then questions whether the regression is tied to the last dungeon, since participants regressed 3 hours after 21 people entered it. Lee listens and recalls that the final dungeon came 10 years later. 3 hours following its entrance, everyone regressed. Jung speculates that it may be the true conclusion of the game. As the show ends, Lee mutters about filthy bastards and remembers that he was once the strongest player. Lee listens to the news and suddenly realizes why the players at the hardware store hailed him hero. A bonus point comes, and he guesses it is for the bubble wrap on his window. In his prior life, he never bothered with such things. Now, even tiny actions seem to reward him. He wins points for drinking water and sitting on the couch. His total grows to 37, and the continuous ascent brightens his attitude. As he stares at the figures, ambition stirs in him. He wonders how he became Korea's strongest player earlier without the butterfly effect skill. He learned early that the weak must yield to the powerful, and this mentality pushed him to desire power through money in battle. Now, with a true route toward absolute strength, he senses that dream returning. The news countdown concludes, showing statues of Lee Hui-yoon, Park Moo-sung, and Choi Chul-sung, the heroes that entered the final dungeon. Seeing his own statue scares him. It is weird to be worshipped like that, only 3 days following regression. He remembers being the highest paid mercenary in his prior life, a weapon people bought for war. Back then, fame meant little to him, but now it feels different. The reporter reveals that all gamers regressed following the dungeon event, suggesting that something within caused it. Dong-guk adds that the three heroes have vanished, hiding to protect their rare skills and equipment. Young queries if this is real, and Dong-guk confirms it. Then he mentions a new rule. The heroes who entered the final dungeon are now forgiven for any transgressions. Lee flicks off the TV before hearing more. Two things become evident to him. Many are hunting him, and he may now legally fight back. He puts on his jacket and steps outdoors. Running through the streets, he learns he never came to Gwanghwamun Square in his prior life. Each step demonstrates the future is already changing. He spends his extra points on agility, boosting it to 52. While running, he reflects on how others focus on strength or mana. For him, the conventional path no longer applies. His bonus points develop faster than anyone else's, making him an outlier. He reaches the busy square. Wearing a sweatshirt and mask, he mutters that this is absurd. If anyone knew who he was, chaos would break out. He scans the throng and senses secret weapons in their stockpiles. Everyone wants to look strong. Fame has made footballers into idols, but also become prey. He glances at the statues again. People previously prayed before them like devotees before gods. Now, the area is empty. His eyes stop on his own statue, marked with the title, Shadow of Death. Suddenly, a player named Kim Chang-bae appears and smashes the statue's head with a mace. A system message arrives, offering Lee bonus points for influencing the future. Chang-bae lands close and hides his weapon, ignorant of who is before him. Chang-bae smashes the statue and starts to run. Lee follows, but with his agility beyond 50, his moves feel difficult to control. After a short chase, he catches Chang-bae and clutches his neck. He slips off his disguise, and the dread in Chang-bae's eyes betrays recognition. Lee demands to know where he was heading. Chang-bae tries to grab for his mace, but Lee seizes his hand and takes it. The weapon previously belonged to an AWP champion and carries a chance to stun, enhancing attack and strength. Lee queries how Chang-bae obtained such a rare weapon in just 5 days. Convinced he must belong to a guild, Lee tightens his grasp and reminds him of his immunity to crimes. Chang-bae gasps for air and begs to be released. Lee requests his name and guild. Trembling, Chang-bae acknowledges he is from the General Guild. Lee orders him to continue. When Lee brings up Project Lee Hua-yun, Chang-bae discloses that it is a plot by the guild to collect all the talents and items Lee once had. After some hesitation, he acknowledges the first target is the stealth skill. It lies in the Lichen Dungeon, which will open in 3 days. He adds that 100 gamers will wait there, knowing that Lee will return for it. Lee realizes those athletes must be regressors. Later, Lee meets Min-soo and tells what he learned. Min-soo distrusts Chang-bae and seeks permission to kill him, but Lee refuses. Min-soo insists the guild will act sooner, while Chang-bae claims it will happen tomorrow. Lee knows one of them is lying. Their debate develops until Lee takes them by the neck and demands proof. Min-soo presents his phone with an article claiming that Lee will be at the Lichen Dungeon on the 7th of January, tomorrow. He tells that the dungeon arrived early in the game and that lichens are far stronger than goblins or orcs. They move in packs, and no one cleared the dungeon before. When they escaped, they ruined cities and killed people. Lee now knows why the dungeon became infamous. It wreaked huge destruction, and people feared it more than any other. Min-soo reminds him that he was the one who damaged it in the past. Lee turns to Chang-bae, demanding to know who ordered him to demolish the statue. Chang-bae snaps and reaches into his inventory. Lee reacts first and breaks his neck. A message emerges, offering a bonus point. Lee understands he must have spared Chang-bae in his prior existence. The world is changing faster now, due of the regressors. He turns to Min-soo and discusses discovering a means to kill lichens, perhaps via poison. Min-soo questions why he is asking about stuff he should already know. Lee cuts him off and reveals he never regressed, urging him to keep it secret. Min-soo is astonished and argues that such knowledge means nothing without power. Lichens are level 5 enemies, and lower-level players cannot enter. Lee nods, realizing he must reach level 5 shortly. Lee is only level 2, but knows levels mean little. With 80 stat points and 162 bonus points, his total reaches 242. By his estimate, he He matches a level 80 player. Still, Minsu cautions him that even with such might, he cannot face the lichens yet, and his low level hinders dungeon admission. Lee begs Minsu to take him somewhere to level up. Minsu reveals that only goblin and orc dungeons exist for now, since new gates open slowly, and the lichen gate appears tomorrow. Most gamers avoid the weaker dungeons, thinking them a waste of time. Lee calls those monsters cuties, and utilizes his extra points to improve strength to 187, increasing his armor skill with it. They arrive at a goblin and orc dungeon. A goblin tosses stones, but Lee runs rapidly and kills 2 with ease. His speed and strength leave no space for resistance. While fighting, he asks Minsu about skill stones. Minsu tells that they rest near a monster's heart, and their hue signifies class: white for common, purple for rare, yellow for unique, and red for legendary. The stealth talent from the lichen dungeon belongs to the rare class, hence its stone glows purple. Lee asks about the meaning of these classes. Minsu tells him that rare and below can appear several times, but unique and legendary exist just once. Skills can also level up, enhancing their effect. When Lee asks about exceptional skills, Minsu claims he has never heard of them, and Lee drops the topic. The next day, Lee reaches level 5. He and Minsu stand at the spot where the lichen gate will soon rise. A crowd already gathers. Lee instructs Minsu to observe, while he does the rest alone. Ahead, roughly 100 members from the general guild wait. Only 5 can enter the dungeon, and Lee must be among them. A man steps forward and announces that this is where Lee Huayun earned the stealth skill in the past. He vows the general guild will grab it this time. The audience cheers, certain of victory. 5 minutes later, the countdown begins. When it ends, the gate opens. Lee bursts forward before anyone can respond. Players shout and try to block him, but none can match his pace. He reaches the gate first and enters, followed by 4 others. The system announces the dungeon is full. Outside, Minsu watches in wonder, understanding Lee has already eclipsed what any regressor could achieve in just 5 days. As soon as they noticed Lee, one of the players shouted to prepare. 3 brought out goblin chef whips to confine his hands and neck, while the 4th placed a net over him. Their plan was clear. They understood they could not vanquish him and tried to trap him instead. Lee activated his armor skill and effortlessly turned the situation around, tying them instead. As they fought under the net, lichens raced in with fierce growls. Lee wondered whether fury was part of their character. The besieged players begged for mercy, acknowledging they were merely following orders. Before they could say further, the lichens attacked. But Lee smashed the animals without difficulty. He noted that wolves and dogs have the same weak place, the muzzle. Years ago, a detection dog had bitten him during a mission, and he subdued it by grasping its snout. Remembering it, he seized the lichens by their muzzles and smashed them. The beast slumped, unable to move. When the gamers wondered why he did not end them, Lee answered that killing all monsters would collapse the dungeon and close the gate. He wanted to find the lichen with the skill stone first, and then slip away discreetly before anyone outside noticed. When the lichens rose again, Lee growled that this was not enough and fractured their bones completely. Then he turned back to the trapped players and demanded the identity of their leader. Trembling, they revealed it was Choi Chul-sung. Lee recalls the name inscribed beside his own statue and wonders if Choi asked them to come for the stealth skill. They accept it, stating they merely followed orders, while one accuses another of betrayal. Lee snatches the one who shouted and breaks his shoulder, telling them he is not here to play games.